Good evening. I wanted to show you an event study with the help of Camtasia, which is a screen capture program that will hopefully make it easier for you to understand exactly what it is you need to do in order to do an event study in finance.yahoo.com as well as Excel. The event that I would like to investigate is when Steve Jobs, the Apple CEO, made an announcement on January the 5th of 2009, which means that you would have a window that extends, of course, after the 5th, which brings you around February. And then you would have a window that basically captures 252 days so that you can evaluate the market reaction, which puts you around November of 2007. But first off, of course, we need to get the Apple returns. And we can basically get those from Yahoo Finance. And what you get here is get the quotes, and then you will have to go to historical prices. So when you go to historical prices, you should be able to the information that you need in order to make the event study happen. Alright, so what we decided is that if you start November of 2007, and then you would take somewhere February, probably around the 20th or so of 2009. That should give you enough prices then before and after the event date. And then you download this in a spreadsheet. Okay. Then what you need to do is you download those information into a spreadsheet, so that you can evaluate those particular returns on the market as well as the event study abnormal returns. Now, what you need to do, the easiest way is when you have those particular data, is save them in a file so that you don't lose it, because that's always a problem with saving it anywhere else. So I like to save it in my UNF teaching file, and here is investments, and we call this then event study for Apple. Okay, there you go. Now you save it in there. Now the next thing that I need is the prices for the market, which in this case we use the GSPC, which is the same as S&P 500 ticker. And then we should have those, and you can see that the information should change. Here you go. And then for the same amount of data, you need to just basically download it also in a spreadsheet that you copy and paste into your existing spreadsheet already. So here you go, copy, and you paste it. The next, here we go, paste. Okay, now I always like to see if I have enough data here. So I have pretty much, give and take, almost 329 data points, and the information is indeed correct. So now I just need to have the adjusted close price for both tickers so that I can delete the next. Now I still have to order it in the right format, which is now easier to do because you click on Control, Shift, and then you go to Data, and then you sort it. There you go. Now the best thing would also be to start inserting some rows, so that you have at least some information that you need to have some availability for, at least some room for. So I would say probably 6 rows above the data is fine. Okay, here we go. Now we're going to identify where our event is at. So our event is around January the 1st. Actually, it's January the 5th of 09, which is at the bottom right here. So it was on a Monday, supposedly. Now, before we do that, we need to evaluate the returns first. So what I do is you need to have, of course, information that will give you the returns of that particular holding period, which is a day. Then today's price minus yesterday's price divided by yesterday's price, and that will give you then the return. And it has to be positive because it's a small increase in price. So that's correct. Now double click that cross, and then you can actually carry it over into the next period. Paste. Now here you got the returns. Identify what you're dealing with. So here's Apple, and then here's the S&P 500, so that you have a better clue of what exactly is that you're evaluating. Now let's go back to the date so that we know exactly what window that we're looking at. Now I always like to go to, don't want to scroll too fast. Then here is the date. I always try to highlight it, or at least maybe make it bold. It's supposedly a little easier. So bold that area. Now you're going to go 10 days above, 10 days above, which is right here. So also bold that date. And then you go 10 days below, which is right here. 10 days below. Also bold that one too. So here the last one is the 20th, right here. And then you can actually highlight the whole area. It should be 21 days. So I always like to do it in a particular color, call it blue. And then you can highlight the middle one so that you know exactly what date it is that you're looking for. So the middle one is the day, and then of course the days, the 10 days before starts at the 18th of this December, and at the 20th of January 09 is when the date was actually the event date is over. Now you need to evaluate, of course, where your returns start. So you have to start with returns. So you have to have 252 returns. And as you can see in the top right is when the number, of course, is increasing. Then you see here at this particular time, and 252 is at 12/19/07. So also bold that one. There we go. And that will be just fine. And then anything else that you have before that you can delete. So I would say just that you delete, otherwise you're running out of room and space. So you can delete all that information. So then these, of course, will, of course, because the above date is not available anymore, will then, of course, give you an error term. But you can easily overcome that by putting in a 0 or just delete it. I would say delete is probably more typical. Okay, so here you have 12/19/07, 252 days of trading before you have the event. Now, first of all, we need to evaluate the market information. So what you do is you evaluate the slope, the intercept, R-square, and the standard error of the regression that you are trying to find the information for. So the intercept is the first one. Then you look at the slope of that evaluation, because you have to look at market data. Then the R-square. R-square is probably better to evaluate. And then the last one would, of course, be your standard error. The standard error of the regression. So that being said, a little bit more room so it looks better. Okay, now what you need to do is, for the intercept, is you click on Intercept. Intercept. And it says it goes for for known Y's and known X's. Well, the known Y's are, of course, the return on Apple. So the return on Apple. So you evaluate the 252 days for Apple. Known days for Apple right here. And that should be 252 in total. Okay. And then you also have, of course, the known X's, which are, of course, your S&P 500 returns. And they should be, of course, lining up the same. Then you open it up and you click. And then the first one is then your intercept. Here we go. So it's a negative intercept. I'm not really interested in the t-stat. It's just basically how it works. Now, what you could do, which I think is easier, I don't know if that's what you agree with, but I'll do it anyhow, is when you block all these particular cells to keep the same information intact. And the reason why I do that is because then you don't have to fill out each individual cell while you change, of course, the formula to which you would like to look at. So here stays the same. Okay, that's a fall. Okay, I have a double, so I need to get this one needs to be another one. I got unfortunately a double sign here, so that's better. Okay, now what you do then, you just basically drag it down. You have the same information, but now you're just going to change the eventual, the information or formula that you're looking for. So in this case would be the slope. Enter. Then for this one it would be the r square. So that just happens to be r square. Enter. Then for this one, of course, it would then be the standard error, which is the same thing as STEYX. And then you have the total standard error of the information. Now, I don't really want to look at the whole area right here. So what I always do is, since I already have the information pretty much in a condensed format, and then to look at the same, I prefer to put it in a spreadsheet that I already have the information kind of hidden, so then you hide it. See, it's easier to see that way. Now, what I will do now is I'm going to evaluate, in this case, the expected return. So that's expected return, also known as return that you're expecting from the market. So here you have the expected return. Then here you have the abnormal return, that is of course the discrepancy between the real return and the return that you were expecting. Then here you have the accumulate abnormal return, and then here you have the ART test. Okay, now the formula for the expected return is of course the intercept. Plus the slope coefficient times, so it's y is beta x times of course the coefficient on the S&P 500, which will be right here. Okay, enter. Now what you need to do is you need to fix these cells again so that they stay when you drag it to the other cells, so that you don't have that problem anymore from that point on. So then you click on that and then you take it down. There you go. So you take it all down here. So these are the expected returns over the 20-day window. Now you want to know the abnormal return. That of course would be the return that you have minus the return that you were expecting. So this is the return on Apple that you have, and this is then the return that you were expecting, and see if there's any discrepancy there. Now you see there's about a 2.4% change on that particular day relative to what the market was anticipating. So let's see if that's correct. Then here you have the expected return, and this is the return that you indeed saw in the market, or at least on Apple. And you take that also down because that doesn't change much. You don't have to block any cells for that. Now I want to see, and probably the market anticipated some changes because significantly higher return on that particular day, although I'm not sure if it's statistical or not. And here you have the abnormal cumulative return, which of course is right here. Now the next one is this return plus the return of that particular day, so you just need to add them all together. So now you take this down and then you get this one. See if that's correct. By clicking on the last cell you should have the one above plus the day that you're evaluating. Now the t-test is the abnormal return divided by your standard error, and then the standard error is right here. And then you click on that one. Now I need to find out, of course, again I need to block this. I need to block this one. And now I want to see if there was a positive, significantly, abnormal return on the day that Steve Jobs announced that his health problems were associated with some imbalance in some hormones and not so much the cancer. And apparently people acted positively to that information. I just don't know how positive the information was. Well, it turns out that it is statistically significant, although it's only at a 10% level. 1.77 pretty much puts us in the 10% range. So there was a statistical significant change on that particular event date, but it is not, in the 5% range. So, and again, if you look at the particular data, I always like to put it in a graphical representation so you can see it better. Then there should be a spike on day 0, also known, of course, on January the 5th of 2009. So then you go to the data here, actually insert, I'm sorry. Then you go to, I always like to put it in a column data, click on here, and then you see here the spikes. The spike on, and you can't really tell what is going on, so you will have to move the chart. Move the chart. You can see it better here. So you see that and then of course the easiest way to evaluate exactly what days that you're looking at is when you look at select data, and then here you see where it says edit. If you click on edit, then you'll have to go back to the table data again and then click on the dates that you're interested in looking at, and then you click OK. You see it automatically will then import those days, and then you can actually see exactly what it is you're looking at. So this is a 20-day window, and then the day we're interested in is of course January the 5th. Then the red mark is of course AR, which is then the marking for the abnormal return, which is statistically significantly higher than what you expected from all the other returns. So it's at a 10% level, and then everything afterwards also has some drift to it, while of course the other returns are in the more normal range what you expected them to be. Just when having a particular event that was going on. So there was a spike on January the 5th that could be explained, of course, by the information that Steve Jobs had given his investors. So that's basically what I wanted to show you, so that you can implement that at at exam time, because this will be a portion of your exam, especially the take-home. So I would like you to evaluate it and see if you can understand it and replicate it, and then I will talk with you by the time you have indeed done it yourself. So thank you. I'm now going to stop the capture